I hope you all are doing okay. Today we are talking about why divorce feels like death. Um, I have been divorced, unfortunately. I was married for 5 years by default, and I say by default because a lot, if not most of that 5 years, we were separated for whatever reason. We couldn't get along. We had a fight. We had tons and tons of disagreements, and we just were constantly separated. Um, and so it came to the point where I said, you know what? This is not a marriage. We're not on the same page. We're constantly separated. We're not living like a married couple. I took responsibility for all of my faults in a divorce. I understood his, and I didn't really blame him or fault him for it. But I just knew what I had to do because it wasn't a marriage. And I really tried. I wanted it to work. We tried counseling and all that stuff, but it just had to come to an end. And so about 7, 8 years later, um, I remarried. And you really do have to work through divorce because it has so many different stages, all the way from the time that you start having the issues to the time that you separate to the time that you actually decide to divorce to the time that you actually divorce. There's so many different elements and so many different emotions and feelings that go along that timeline. Of actually getting a divorce. And then after the divorce, you have a whole nother set of emotions and things that you have to deal with again. It's like you go through it all over again and you have to deal with that healing process. So with that being said, I must say that when I was going through my divorce, through the separation and the divorce itself, I did feel like a failure because I felt like I was the whole package, like I had it all to offer. Um, and that I had done things right and I was good to him and I treated him right and all that stuff. But of course I had my faults in the marriage. I don't deny my part that I played in the demise of that relationship at all. I take full responsibility. However, I do think that is things that probably could have been worked out on both of our parts. And it just had to come to an end. But I did feel the depression. I did feel the embarrassment. I felt like I was a failure, and all of those feelings that come with the fact that something so major is ending, because marriage was something that I always wanted. And I said when I got married, I'm going to be the best wife. I'm going to do things right. I'm going to treat him right, do what I'm supposed to do. And it just didn't work out like that. And that's life. Like, you can plan things, but you never know how things are actually going to turn out. Hi, welcome to my live today. If you're joining in, this is Notions at Noon, and I'm talking about the fact of why divorce feels like death. If you all have anything to add or chime in, you want to just comment or say hello, please do. I'm talking about why divorce feels like death. So, divorce feels like death, and I'm coming from a spiritual angle here, okay? Hi, Cameron. So from a spiritual aspect, divorce feels like death because when you get married, you are two individuals spiritually and physically, that in essence are supposed to become one spiritually. You can't technically become one physically, but spiritually and in every other essence, you become one. All right. And that is in Genesis 2 and 24. A man leaves his wife, a man leaves his parents and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. That's Genesis 2 and 24. So when you divorce, there is it feels like a literal tearing apart of one flesh. If you can imagine yourself being torn into two and being split apart, that's literally what divorce felt like for me anyway. I know a lot of people may go through divorce and feel it differently or whatnot, but for me, it literally felt like I was being torn apart. All right. And so on the spiritual level, when two become one flesh, That's what divorce feels like when you are tearing away and tearing apart that one flesh. So, the other aspect to that is the fact that marriage is supposed to be the foundation and the starting point for having children. And some people even say that the whole point of marriage is the children. And so if the marriage ends and you don't have children, then there's the death of the dream of having children. Or if you already have children, then there's the death of the foundation for those children that divorce brings, because the children are going to be torn apart. Either one, they're all going with one parent and they're hardly going to see the other or be in the presence of the other, or some of the children are going to go with one parent and some with the other. And so you have a splitting again. So it's like the children are being torn apart. Cameron, I see you're saying hi. Hi, Alexis, how are you? Thank you for joining in today. Um, so, and in divorce, the children are actually feeling the pain. So that's another death in itself. So the Most High, or God, or higher spiritual power, whoever you want to call him, he says that he hates divorce. And there's a reason he hates divorce, because he knows it's a death. All right. And that is in Malachi 2:16. And also, divorce feels like you are letting God down. Okay. So if you're coming into marriage from a biblical background or standpoint, if you divorce, you feel like you're letting God down, because he hates divorce. He doesn't want us to divorce. And it's like he says that a man is supposed to love his wife like Christ loved the church. And so if Christ divorced the church, then you have a serious issue and problems on your hand. And he doesn't want men around here divorcing women, because he knows the troubles and the problems that it causes. He knows the issues that it causes with women and in their relationships and in their self-image. He knows the problems and issues it causes in the children, and destabilizing their foundation and what they believe and what they know. And it deters them from being a more productive member of society, because their whole foundation and what they know and what they trust and believe has been completely torn apart. So those are some reasons that divorce feels like death. That's why marriage should not be entered into lightly, because it's easier to get into it than it is to get out. And there's a lot of emotions and trauma that actually comes with getting a divorce. So if it is something that you can absolutely avoid, my suggestion is always avoid it. I have a friend that was getting a divorce, and even though I had already gone through it and I knew what it felt like, my advice to her was, let that be the nuclear option. Don't let it be the first an absolute option if you can prevent it and avoid it. And they had a young child. I said, do everything you possibly can to save your marriage before you decide to get a divorce. Now, I am not an advocate for any type of abuse or mistreatment or in any way like that. However, divorce is necessary in some cases, and it's actually allowed if you're coming from a biblical standpoint. There are things that divorce is allowed for, and adultery is one of them. Because if you have adultery, you've already broken the covenant. Like, is it even a marriage anymore? After that point, it's up to those two individual people to decide, hey, I want to continue the marriage and make it better, or find options to, improve the marriage. Or if the person that was actually wronged or cheated on, that person technically has the right to go to end the marriage on paper. I mean, it's already ended in general, because the covenant has been broken by stepping out of the marriage. But now that person has the right and the option to actually make it official on paper. It's totally up to them. So yeah, and just depending on how you look at it, there are other reasons for divorce as well. And for me personally, I believe abandonment is another very good reason for divorce. And that was the case with my first divorce. Well, not my first divorce, my divorce, because I'm remarried now. But we were separated so much, it felt like abandonment. I'm like, okay, are we married? Are we not? I'm still functioning as a single person, even though I'm married on paper, and it just was not functional at all. It was like, we're just married on paper. We're not doing things together. We're not, combining our lives, you know, and I had never met his children, even though they were in a different country. But that was another issue. He had gone to visit his children a couple times or a few times throughout the marriage, and I never went with him, and that was an issue for me. So the fact that we weren't combining our lives and really functioning and acting like a married couple, that was very bothersome to me. And so after I put all of those elements together and I came to the point, I just don't really see the point in continuing this and doing this. We're wasting time. And even though it hurt more to stay in a situation that I was not getting out of it what I needed. And he probably wasn't getting out of it what he needed or wanted either. So the best bet was to go ahead and divorce. And even though he made an attempt to rectify it, at a certain point when things keep happening over and over again, it's just time to just go ahead and pull the plug, because sometimes you can do more detriment by staying in a marriage that's not functional and not good than you can do than just by go ahead and getting out of it. And I want to say to you all, if you have been divorced, if you're getting a divorce, if you're considering divorce, there is life after it. After you get over the hump and you see the light and you say, okay, well, that was the best decision for me, you pick yourself up, you get up, you beautify yourself, you take care of your mind, your heart, your body, your soul, and you get back on the horse. If you want to get into another relationship, first and foremost, I advise you to get counseling, seek counsel, and heal and prepare yourself to even be in a relationship with someone else. Not even a marriage, just in a relationship with anybody else. You have to heal first. And even if you're not even considering or want a relationship with anybody else, for yourself, you should do that healing, because you don't want to be walking around with an open wound. You want to understand what led you to that divorce, and you want to know what helps you heal and actually put those things into place to heal. Because again, divorce, it feels like death. And just like there's a process that you go through when you lose a loved one, that's exactly how you feel when you get a divorce, and you need time to heal. And people should really truly take the time to heal. And not just after a divorce, after any relationship, people should truly take time to heal. What did you do wrong? What did they do wrong? How would you do things differently? Did you see any red flags or any warning signs? What is it that you don't want in a relationship? Those are all things you need to evaluate before you even consider or get into another relationship after divorce or after a relationship ends in general. So if anybody, do you all have any questions or comments about divorce, getting a divorce? Have you been divorced? Do you know anyone who is divorced and dealing with anything? What was the healing process like for you? If you all don't have any more comments, questions, concerns, or anything like that, I'm going to go ahead and end this live. This was about the fact that divorce feels like death, some of the reasons divorce feels like death. And if you all are going through this, I send my support to you, and you will definitely get over this hump. All right, going once, going twice. Any more comments? If not, I want to thank you all for joining today, and you be blessed.